All right. Welcome everybody to the eighth installment. Three more to go today and two more of the Canadian Expat Masterclass. We have covered a ton of stuff, so much so that Yvette and I thought we'll use today's meeting to, it is titled Legal Considerations for Canadian Expats, but we know we've touched on a lot of these in the past with our guests and everything. So we put together a little bit of a slideshow to just go over everything again to remind everybody all the different implications, because most of the questions that we get are tax and legal, really. Visas, um, what happens with Canadian residency and all that. So it won't be the whole hour. It's going to be like a little bit, maybe 20 minutes. And then after that, we're going to revisit Mark and Mary Expat because next week we're really excited that we're going to be showing what the result of their planning was, the type of reports that they're now living in Spain for 6 months, and so on and so forth. So we're excited to share that with you as well. In the meantime, again, if any questions come up, Yvette is checking the chat and everything, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. So without further ado, let me share the screen. All right. I think it's screen two I want to share. Yeah. What do you guys see?
You and the presentation.
Is the presentation big enough, or do you want me to just take my head off of there? I'll take my head off. What do you think, Iveta? Is it okay?
Whatever works so far, we can see.
Can you see? Okay.
Yes?
All right. So, well, welcome everybody. Session eight, legal considerations for Canadian expats. My name is Serge, and I'm once again joined by my partner here at IG Wealth, Iveta. Today, we're going to be covering some crucial legal aspects that Canadian expats need to be aware of when planning their move abroad, from tax residency rules to estate planning, property ownership, and compliance with local laws. And that is a lot to consider in a big mouthful. So let's continue on. Um, Today, we're going to cover five key areas you should be thinking about. And even though we've covered them before, we think it's good refresher when it comes to legal planning for your move abroad. So we're going to talk about residency and tax status, understanding how your tax obligations change when you move, wills and estate planning, ensuring your legacy is protected both in Canada and abroad, powers of attorney and healthcare directives, making sure you're covered in case of emergencies, property ownership abroad, knowing what legal hurdles exist when buying or selling property internationally, compliance with local laws, including visa requirements, driver's licenses, which Yvette reminded us all about because we hadn't talked about that at all, actually, and employment regulations. So let's start with the tax status. One of the biggest legal considerations when leaving Canada is your tax residency status. We've been talking about this over and over again. And I don't know if you're like me, still trying to figure out exactly what domicile is and tax residency. What I've learned from all these experts that we brought on is that it depends, like Feda likes to say. And there's a lot of need to speak with a professional. I mean, you could always just leave and see what happens and then deal with the repercussions afterwards. But when speaking with someone like the connections we made at Trowbridge or any other international tax planning firm, we're not forcing everybody to use Trowbridge, but they've been a great partner. They know their stuff and they can definitely guide you to figure out what your tax residency is in terms of the CRA. In Canada, residency for tax purposes is based on factors such as ties to the country, things like owning a home, having a family here, maintaining Canadian bank accounts. If you have too many ties, the CRA may still consider you a resident for tax purposes, meaning that even if you live in another country, you'll be taxed in Canada on your worldwide income. On the other hand, if you properly sever the ties and establish tax residency abroad, you may only be taxed in your new country of residence, and each country has different tax residency rules. In many places, such as Spain and Portugal, spending more than 183 days a year may automatically make you a tax resident there. And for speaking from personal experience, I know that to be the case, as my wife had worked in Spain for just shy of 6 months by a few days, and we were fortunate enough not to have to file taxes in Spain as well. We just did everything in Canada. Of course, that was another complications because any income she made there, we had to convert to euros. I actually got audited on that. So don't think that they're not watching. Another important consideration is visa requirements because before moving, you need to determine the right visa for your stay. So we've introduced a couple of lawyers that help people with that. And I've come like, we might decide that we definitely need the non-lucrative visa or we want the golden visa, which by the way, if you should all know it's expiring, or maybe there's another visa. And there are many, many visas. So if the one doesn't work, maybe another might work. And it's really important that if you need some guidance on that, you talk with the local lawyers that we've introduced or find one there that can help you out. Inma in particular and Rafael from Malaga. Inma is from the Valencia region and Rafael, their firms can help guide. They have different areas that can talk with you and figure out what is the best visa? Like, who are you? Are you retired? Are you pre-retired? Are you working, planning to work, not planning to work? These are important questions to ask to make sure you get the right visa. And the other thing we've learned along the way is that visas, this might be on a future screen, but it's not just getting the visa. There's other things that you need to do, like getting private health insurance, which was something that I had learned by speaking with INMA. Um, whether it's temporary visa, permanent residency, or a retirement visa, each option has different implications for your tax obligations and lengths of stay. Some countries like Portugal offer golden visas that allow residency through investment. I recently watched a YouTube video by an American couple that moved to Bulgaria 4 years ago, and it was very interesting. The visa there, in Bulgaria, they do have a visa as well for becoming a resident there, and it wasn't 500,000 euros; it was 320,000. So every country has different requirements. The other thing I found really interesting, and this is just an aside that I found really interesting because I'm Romanian and I know that Romania and Bulgaria entered the Schengen zone. And for now, their tax rates are the lowest in the European Schengen area at 10% flat. Like, uh, from what I learned from that video, which again, I have to review and ask when I travel to Romania this summer, I'll be talking with some accountants. But from my understand, they don't tax any Canadian pensions at all, any income. It's not considered, they don't tax anything. It's just taxed in Canada, and they'll only tax you on any income that you made in Bulgaria or Romania. So basically, there's no tax. And if you do make some sort of income, it's 10%. Now, this is not vetted yet, but I just wanted to share that with you. It's important to, check your options. We're all looking at one country, but Europe is a big continent now. Like there's 29 different countries in that Schengen area. Um, Questions to consider. How many days will you be willing to spend in Canada versus your new country? Are you going to be a snowbird, like in going to Florida, but now to Europe, or are you going to be permanent resident somewhere else? Will your visa type affect your tax residency? And should you take steps to optimize your tax situation before you leave? All right, on to the next exciting topic, wills and estate. So we covered this briefly also. Estate planning is another critical area to consider when moving abroad. In Canada, a will typically cover your assets located within the country of Canada. And probate rules will vary by province. Many people assume their Canadian will is enough, but when you acquire assets abroad, such as a property in a foreign country or investments, you may need a separate will that aligns with the laws of the new country. Some countries, such as France or Spain, have actually, we learned this as well, forced heirship laws. Heirship, like your heirs, meaning a portion of your estate must go to specific heirs regardless of your wishes. So you need to talk with a lawyer about that. When you settle into your new country or when you're buying a property, you talk with one of the firms that we recommended or find a firm, and they'll explain that to you. It's also important to consider potential inheritance taxes, which can vary significantly depending on your country of residence. For example, some jurisdictions impose taxes on worldwide assets, while others only tax local assets. A question I asked Raphael from the legal firm that I was introduced to by Sergey was when do they get the will done? And you know, in typical, I like to say, more laid back Spanish fashion, they know the importance of the will, they will definitely tell the clients about. But when they first get that property, there's always that excitement and everything. So nobody's really thinking about getting the will on that first appointment. On the second appointment, they may be doing a few other things, but and by the third appointment, they're bringing up the will and they're getting the will done as well. It's a really important thing, and it's really personal for everybody. So one thing for sure, get a will. We recommend it. Some things to consider. Do you need to draft separate wills for each country? Well, I'm pretty sure we've cleared that. Will your Canadian estate plans be legally valid abroad? So take your will with you when you go and have it checked. Are there strategies to minimize estate taxes in the new country? All right. Powers of attorney. Let's talk about powers of attorney and healthcare directives. In Canada, these documents ensure someone you trust can manage your finances and medical decisions if you become incapacitated. However, a Canadian power of attorney may not be recognized abroad. Different countries have unique legal frameworks, and you may need to draft local versions of these documents that comply with your new home's laws. One important aspect to keep in mind is access to healthcare under your new visa status. Some visas, and we touched upon this, may require proof of private health insurance. For example, in speaking with Inma, she definitely said for the golden visa or any visa, in that first year, you need private healthcare. After which, and this is talking about Spain, of course, um, uh, I want to underline apologies to others. We're not thinking about Spain as their destination. We've been focused on Spain a lot, and we'll be sure to make sure we're adding more countries to the list. But after the 1 year in Spain, after the private healthcare, then you could add yourself to the government program. One interesting aside, again, that same video that I watched, the Americans in Bulgaria, they could get into the public one almost immediately. I don't think it was that restrictive. So again, different countries have different rules. So things to consider are should you obtain a POA in your new country? Most likely, I guess the question that would come to my mind, and I haven't done this myself, is like, who do you set up as a POA if you're in a new country and you don't know anybody? So that is something definitely to tackle. I asked the question of Raphael, and I mean for them the POA is more about the legal stuff like the home buying and the paperwork and the banking. I don't think, I mean, I didn't ask the question about the healthcare directive, but that's something that should be pinned and thought about because, I mean, especially if you're on your own in Spain, like what happens if you get in a car accident or heaven forbid, knock on wood, nothing happens to anybody in this group, but that's something to consider. Um, so that's for this page here. Okay, property ownership. Owning property abroad can be exciting, but it comes with legal complexities. So some countries restrict foreign property ownership, while others have taxes and legal fees that are significantly higher than in Canada. If you plan to work while abroad, it's important to check employment regulations tied to property ownership. Like some visas will allow passive income, but prohibit active business operations. So, what are the foreign ownership restrictions? What are about capital gains that are on non-principal residences? What foreign ownership may have restriction? Consider the higher taxes and legal fees that may apply, inheritance laws again, and what are the tax efficient ways to hold foreign property? Did I go too far? No, I went too far. How do I go back? Do I go back? I don't know how to go back. Okay, here we go. I know, I figured out how to go back. All right. Okay, compliance with local laws. Understanding and complying with the locals' laws is essential to a smooth transition abroad. So key areas to consider include Again, visa requirements. Each country has specific visa rules requiring proof of sufficient funds. We didn't really go into all the different visas, but you must all know that they're going to want to make sure that you have enough money to support yourself and not be a burden on society there. So check into those visa regulations. Choosing the right visa can affect your tax obligations and ability to work. Now, here's the driver's license thing. Some countries we found make it fairly easy. Like, for example, Portugal, we've heard is more easy to convert your Canadian driver's license, and some not. In fact, my cousin who lives in Malaga, after 6 or 7 years, still has not gotten her Spanish driver's license because you need to retake the test in Spanish. And uh, what I've heard, I haven't taken the test myself, is not only just about stop signs and yield signs. It's about how the engine works and how to repair something in it. So it can be quite daunting. Um, so that is something to consider if you do plan to have a car and drive around in your chosen country of destination. So if none of you here have said you're planning to work there, you're mostly going to look for retirement or, being a snowbird. But if you do plan to work abroad, it's important to understand the visa restrictions as well, because some visas will allow people to live there but not work, while others require employer sponsorship or freelance permits. And not complying with work regulations could lead to visa cancellation.
Hmm, very good point. Sorry, very good point on Sergey. He says that you can take the test in English. I suppose, Sergey, you're referring to driver's test, right?
Excellent.
Yeah, imagine if you have to do it in Spanish. That's great.
But do you still have to learn how the engine works? Because I failed
Yeah.
that, and I think I built an engine in physics class, but it barely, or a motor. All right. Key takeaways. So here are the key takeaways from this presentation. Tax residency matters a lot. Make sure you understand the tax rules before moving abroad. Estate planning is critical. Make sure your will and legal documents align with local laws. Visa selection is crucial. The right visa impacts your residency, taxes, and work options. Driving and employment regulations vary. Make sure you're legally compliant in all aspects of expat life. And be proactive with local regulations, staying compliant. All right, so the next part is just to see if there's any question. And we are so proud of this amazing design here on the screen that our assistant Laura Skakunova has created for us. Feel free to use your phone to check out what it is. Little bit of a teaser. It's the book a consult. We're just starting to push that a little bit more for anybody who wants to meet with myself or Iveta or both of us. There's options to choose one of those three. Either a joint meeting with me and Iveta for 30 minutes, one with just me if you don't like Iveta, one with just Iveta if you don't like me, whatever the case may be. So we'll leave that up on the screen for a few minutes or seconds, and then any questions in the chat there, Iveta?
No, we just kind of commented on driver's license. I think it is one of the very important things to truly pay attention to because I've read enough stories where many cannot simply pass the driving test, and they're forced to use Bolt, which is Uber in Europe, or hire a driver. It is a serious issue. So that is something to definitely look into. And another aspect I'd like to um, sorry, Don, international driver's license, probably. I don't know. Sergey, you would know that answer.
Well, I
They,
have an international driver's license when I go. I still have one from last year. It's valid for 12 months, and it's got to be issued in Canada when you go there. So after 12 months, it's no longer valid.
Yeah, so it's if you plan to move. And if I may step back, Serge, for a second there, during last class when was it 2 classes ago when we spoke about life insurance and critical illness insurance
Hmm. Yeah,
that is
please.
issued in Canada. I made the point to reach out to, well, both of us research to reach out some of our specialists, and we did confirm indeed that besides life insurance, that was confirmed that if for unforeseen reason somebody passes away outside of Canada with Canadian life insurance policy, as long as it's approved and a death certificate is intact, yes, indeed, it will be paid out to beneficiaries or to estate. Now, critical illness insurance was the second question. Critical illness insurance in Canada is usually paid out. Well, the benefit you insure yourself for is paid out after being diagnosed with one of the, on average, 26 conditions, top being cancer, stroke, heart attack. And you have to survive 30 days. Once you survive 30 days, you receive check cash free, tax free, do whatever you want with the money. So just to confirm, if you're in Europe, Spain, Mexico, wherever you are, you have a critical illness, it is diagnosed on spot in that country. As long as it is translated document, as long as it is enough sufficient proof for Canadian insurance provider, they will pay out the benefit, once again, tax free. Okay, so just wanted to confirm that.
Awesome.
Serge, back to you.
All right, thank you. Um, so I'm just putting this up on the screen. What we're going to do for the next 15 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up to any questions or chat, is to revisit Mark and Mary Expat, because next week we're going to present them with the final version of their plan. So let me share the screen. Okay. So, can we see the screen, Iveta?
Yes, it's pretty fine, Serge. It's a little small. If we
Okay.
want to see a little bit more detail, it's a little tough to see all your uh let's say tabs. We can't really see.
Okay. Let me see what I can do.
Okay, maybe slightly better, yeah.
Well, what I want to highlight is that when we first met with them, we had different numbers here for retirement. We have kids going for education. They're going to finish in a few years, and that's kind of the plan when they're going to leave. We didn't have a cash reserve. We're talking, and the reason we brought it in to play is, I'm not sure if we brought this up, but there's the concept of the cash wedge. I'm pretty sure we talked about it at one point. I can't remember what session it was. Many retirees, whether it's Canada or whether it's Europe or wherever it is, um, you know, market fluctuations are not anything new. It's happened forever. Politics has happened forever. Wars have happened forever. So you've accumulated all this money. You've worked hard all your life, and now you've got a pile of cash to decide what to do with until the rest of your life, plus pensions and whatever. So how do you sleep well at night knowing that whatever's happening in the markets is not going to affect your overall portfolio? Trust me, if you got $1 million and you're sitting pretty and you understand all the ups and downs, you talk to your financial planner, yeah, yeah, it's okay, I get it. 10% up, 10% down. Oh, I'm all even okay with 20% up and 20% down. But when you get that statement on December 31st and it's a million and the next quarter it's 800,000 with 20% down, which is what 20% is on a million, you might be sweating a little bit and wondering what did you do with your portfolio and will you be eating out of cat food on the streets. I've come across that with many clients, and it took a little bit of time to calm them down. And it was through no fault of our own or their own. It's just understanding what percentages mean and putting a little bit of protection in place. So what we generally like to recommend, and it's not required all the time, is put aside at least a year of money in cash or something liquid so that you know that for that first year, you don't have to worry about the markets because we all know, I mean, I don't know if we all know, but Yvette and I definitely know, we've been in this business for a long time, that being invested in the market is the best opportunity of keeping pace with inflation keeping pace with all the new requirements of paying for stuff. If you leave it as cash or in a GIC, then you need a lot of cash in GICs. Like $1 million at 2% is not going to be a lot of money every year, $20,000, right? So you need a little bit more than that. But if you do to put the whole million or whatever it is that you have, half a million, whatever that is, um, to take advantage of the long-term market growth, uh, knowing that it might go down by 10 or 20%, peace of mind. You're still not going to like it if it goes down, but if you have that cash, the bank account that pays your trips, your Ubers, your ice creams on the Spanish cobblestone steps, then that's going to be a little bit easier to take. So we recommended a cash reserve for them, and we funded it here. Um, the residents, this is the buying the property in Spain that they wanted to do. And we've come up with the fact that with all of this in place and their spending of, I think it was 10,000 per month, that was the goal that they wanted to have. So it's pretty, extravagant, but that's what they wanted to see if it worked out to. They're still leaving behind almost 2.5 million to their kids based on today's assumptions and scenarios. So this is a shot in time, like a balance sheet. Like it's not like we just do it and forget about it. It should be continually reviewed, and we would do that if they were Canadian residents. Every 3 months or every 6 months, we'd call them up and chat with them to see what's changed. When people are not in Canada, we are not at liberty to do that as much. Of course, we can take calls and so on, but compliance restrictions, if some of you may have heard and seen, if you're with any banking or financial institution, since none of us are licensed in Europe, we don't have a presence in Europe. While we can take instructions, we can't provide, you know, proactive calling. And how do we get around that? As a reminder, this is another refresher. One of the best recommendations that I would offer would be to invest in something that is automatically rebalanced for you. So you don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, you know, there's a new president in the US. What's that going to affect my US stocks? What's going to affect in Canada? What's going to affect in Ukraine and part of the world if there's a war going on? Knowing that whatever investment you pick, whether it's from the blue bank, the yellow bank, the red bank, or the IG blue, that portfolio is going to be automatically rebalanced for you in your kind of risk profile. Um, if anybody has any questions on that, I'm happy to talk about again as a refresher, but that was brought up in previous master classes. So let's take a quick look to remind everybody what they were looking to do and their information. We have Mark and Mary Expat, 54, I think it was, and 52. They have two kids, Zach and Tina. Their incomes, 96 and 78. Their accounts, we have all their accounts here. So they have some pretty significant accounts, and Mary has a larger RSP than Mark, but they've also got TFSAs and a joint non-registered. They have the house. They have a pension for Mark, which is why his RSP is a bit lower. They've been in Canada more than 40 years, so they're going to expect to get their whole old age security when they turn 65. And that old age security would follow them as long as they've been in Canada for 20 years before they leave. They don't have to come back to reinstate that. And CPP is an estimate that we put in. Lifestyle assets, that's their house. They bought it for 375. They're valuing it at 1.5 million. And they do have a plan to sell this house in 2028 and then when that happens, the proceeds of the sale will pay off their mortgage and the rest will go into their joint non-registered account. Speaking of mortgage, they have the mortgage of 194 at 5%, paying $2,000 a month. Their expenses are all listed here, and that's all going until retirement. So I made the screen a bit bigger so you can see it, but if I make it smaller just for a second, um, you'll see here that, for example, property taxes are start from the start of this plan year until March 31st, 2028, when they're planning to sell the house. Um, home insurance as well. We should change that to March 2028. Although it's almost the same day because that's when they're leaving or they're planning. It's around that same time. But this is for the current living in Canada part phase. And then when they're planning to leave, we have what they've estimated because they don't know what they're going to spend. But they just wanted to put the plan to see, is it going to work out if we have $10,000 a month for joint of us until death? And don't forget that this software will also ensure that it's keeping up with an inflation rate. So it's not 10,000 in 10 years. In 10 years, 10,000 is not 10,000 anymore. Maybe it's 13,000 or whatever that is. So over the years, it will continue to grow. So let's make this bit bigger again. Maybe I made it too big. Maybe not. Rental property, they do have that rental property, and they're not planning to get rid of that rental property. When they pass away, that'll go through their will and go to their estate. It's a good investment for them. And I guess one question we might have at the beginning is, well, that will that sever ties to Canada or not? Because if they have a tie back to Canada, and what we've uncovered and learned is that it depends. Again, if it's a empty rental property and they have access to it and they can go into it all any time, or if it's given to their kids to use, then it might still be in the gray area of making them Canadian residents. However, if it's rented to a third party, then like it's contractual and stuff, and it's not that easy to get back into it, then it wouldn't be considered like that significant of a tie. However, one thing important to realize and remember is that the rental income that they're getting monthly is not going to be fully 2,000. Um, Trowbridge, our partners, have informed me that one of the biggest things that they do for clients that have properties and they live overseas is they do the filing every month because it's a monthly filing that's required with rental income to send 25% actually of the rental income to the CRA and let them know about it. And if you don't, there are penalties to pay. There are forms to fill out and so on to make sure you get that portion back, and that's something that you'd highly recommend when you speak with an accountant to do that. If you have a family member that you wanted to get them to do that, it's a lot of work, and they're going to want to pay them anyway. And if they make a mistake, what are you going to do? Sue them? Maybe. Who knows? Probably want to get a professional corporation to look into that. All right. So again, we don't have the asset sale happening at all. It's just basically the last to die will be the asset sale, and it's going to go into the bank account, part of the estate. Life insurance policies. Well, Mark's got this one policy um, for 250,000, and that's it. So they don't have a lot of insurance. So part of the recommendation was to get some insurance. No other insurance policies, no annuities, and the retirement goal was retire at age 60, married to retire on the same date that Mark turned 60. The education goal is all in here, so we got the education expense for Zach and Tina to take care of them before the parents kick off and live their life. Cash reserve goal and major expense goal. So major expense goal is the residence in Europe. I believe we said it's not 500,000 euros, that's for sure, because it's in Canadian dollars. I can't remember what we picked at, but it's probably 250,000 euros. Uh, Sergey doesn't have to get off the line, but I'm almost finishing editing a video that I did with Sergey from Enso Team Realty, asking that question, like what's the minimum kind of you can find in the Malaga area, which is not the cheapest area in Spain, in the Costa del Sol. And I believe he mentioned that 250,000 will be the ultimate lowest for maybe a one bedroom apartment. So 250 is kind of the lowest ring here, rung. Legacy goal is just what's left behind. So we could specify a specific target to leave for the kids, but with this case, we just let the software figure it out, and it's 1.75 million. All right, so that's a recap of Mark and Mary Expat, and we're very excited that next week we're going to be before presenting it, we're going to vet this plan. What is what the document that they're going to be getting. Um, And it basically, what I like about it is that it's not just the numbers, it also says what uh they wanted to do. So here's the assumptions, just so everybody's reminding about what the assumptions are. The inflation rate, that may seem low to you. I know that probably saying, wait a second, inflation has not been that over the COVID years. or as someone had once said to me the other day, the great pandemic. Um, but in truth, this is the historical inflation rate that we use. And it is back to this rate, believe it or not, now. It's just that prices are not coming down. Like the fact that prices went up doesn't mean they're going to come down again. Hopefully, we're going to see some increase in income, which hasn't been keeping a pace with inflation, but this is the inflation rate. Um, this is the current rate of return, and they're conservative investors, so we're not putting them in high aggressive investments. And then here's what really cool is that uh, we show them what they said they wanted and what the recommendations is and what the assumptions. So they're going to get this plan, achieve a comfortable retirement in Spain by age 60 with an annual income of 70,000 Canadian, support for a grown child, provides financial support for their children, home purchase in Spain, buy a retirement home in Spain. See, I already found the mistake because obviously this is not 10,000 a month. So I have to go
Mhm.
back and check that. Home purchase in Spain, buy a retirement home in Spain with the next 5 years with a budget of Canadian 400,000. Emergency fund, build an emergency fund equivalent to 6 months of living expenses. Leisure and travel and leisure, allocate Canadian 15,000 annually for travel and leisure activities, including visits back to Canada. Uh, and then assumptions. So uh, these are some of the assumptions that were put in here. Currency exchange rate. This is actually brought, the software did this automatically. I didn't have to input that myself. Exchange rate will remain relatively stable, averaging 1 Canadian to 70 cents euro. This is an assumption, obviously. And then here are the results. And after that, they're just going to get all this. Before we give it to them, want to vet it one last time, and then this draft thing will be coming off, and then we'll be presenting it. So that's it. We're at 7:43. Any questions?
Now that we have in the chat, um, so sorry, just to confirm, Serge, we will be presenting it next week with
Yep.
our suggestions, right?
Yeah, everything is going to be fully vetted. I already spotted a few inconsistencies in there from what
Mhm.
the input was and what the result was. And then typically we'll say, okay, so here's your plan. Next steps are if they're ready to go, let's start working together, and we become their consultants and financial advisors, and introduce them to the relevant experts that need to be introduced for their move to Spain. The reality is, it's not any different than doing a plan for someone living in Canada. It comes down to a little bit of a layer on top that I have not found happening across the board. I mean, I haven't gone undercover like CBC to like another firm and said, "Hey, can you help me out to do this?" But just in talking with people and getting questions from Facebook group pages and people reaching out to me, I find that they're not getting the answers they need by contacting their financial institution through no fault of the financial institution. It's just that they're not focused on that. And to be quite honest and transparent, neither is IG to a big extent, except for Canadians moving to the US. We have a wealth of experience and information for Americans living in Canada and how they should invest because of their tax implications, but also Canadians going to the States. Like there's a lot of snowbirds, so many snowbirds that we're allowed to talk to our clients in 10 states. We've made agreements with the 10 states where the most Canadians are living, like Arizona and Texas and Florida and New York. In the past, we couldn't. We couldn't really reach out to them while they were being snowbirds, and now we can. So that's a big move forward. We're just not there yet for other parts of the world. So the fact that Yvette and I are putting this together, it's kind of unique because we're part of that part of the culture in the world, and that's what we want to do. So we've really put our heart and soul in trying to figure this out, not just for you guys, but also for us. Trust me when I say compliance, had to make sure compliance was on board with this. I've spoken with our own CEO and made sure that he's on board and he's on board. Um, because there's a lot of interest recently about a lot of interest, although it might seem like undercover, because if you're not in this group or on the Facebook groups, if you bring it up at a party, all your friends and family say, "You're moving where?" Like, I don't know how many times close people to me, like maybe not even friends, that when I tell them the plan, they go, "You would actually leave Canada?" And it's like a very foreign concept to a lot of people that are not in this space. And that's the reason if you're ever to walk into your financial institution and say, "Hey, I was in a master class and they told me that maybe you can't have me as a client. Is that true?" You might get a dumb face, sorry, blank face. Sorry, that slipped. Freudian slip. Blank face saying, uh, let me check, right? And then because the question that asked a lot, in fact, for banking, I would say almost never people just leave. And then they find out afterwards that uh, you don't have access or there's restrictions on you always have access to your fund. Please, you always have access to your own money, but there's different levels of access. Just redemptions, maybe. If you have multiple investments, like a stock portfolio or a mutual fund portfolio with 10 different mutual funds, and you wanted to ask them like what to do with it and buy and sell, that might not be available. So it's highly recommended that if you're planning to even manage your own stuff, talk with your discount brokerage, get it in writing, whether what you're going to be able to access or not. I was under that same assumption way back when that I'll just be in Europe and accessing my stuff online. And now I'm happy to say that I have my own resource in IG. If and when I make that move, Yvette is going to be my financial planner and managing my investments while I'm overseas sipping cappuccinos on cobblestone streets. Uh, so I feel
Very
like I
good.
was talking in a soapbox there.
No, no, no.
Uh,
Very good, Serge. Just to recap a bit back to the plan and what you guys can expect next week. Many of us are questioning. The biggest question in reality, besides our assets, is the CPP and old age security, right? And now we know what are the rules. There's withholding tax automatically. If you are overseas, you will receive it, and that's it. You don't need to file taxes here either. However, how is it going to affect the plan? This is where it's interesting because if I retire at 60, and claim it at 60, it's obviously going to be much less if I wait till age 62 or 65. And these are the different, how should I say, different proposals that will be visible in this plan to show you also the end figure of assets of how much it's going to affect it. And I don't know if it's relevant, but I just had a meeting with a client this past week, and he has fully retired, but he's not 72 yet. And he said, "Tomorrow I'm calling to apply for my CPP." And I say, "Well, wait, Mr. So and so, let's look at the plan." And just by delaying that one extra year, I said, "Wait, don't call." We increased his retirement income by 120%, meaning the total, he's reaching his retirement income 120%. If he would have go ahead and apply, his retirement income was closer to 97% of the goal. So this is very important aspect, especially for those who are planning to possibly move and to play around with those numbers and systems. And we have capability of utilizing the system and truly having very true results. So watch out for that next week's session. Back to you, Serge.
we did have a question if we're doing this in French, and unfortunately, I had to say no, we don't have French capabilities at this time. We do have consultants across the country. Like I said, Yvette and I are kind of unique in this space where we haven't heard anybody else that's working on this, but we do have Quebec consultants that would speak French. If they were interested in this, sorry guys, this is kind of the vacuum in this area. There are accountants that work on this separately. You're going to meet whoever well, I don't know if anybody's coming downtown. We're sold out almost. We're at 95% register, 95 registrants out of 100 for next Tuesday. But the international accountants are not working. They're not our firm. They're connections we made that will be talking about taxes for international, Canadians. Gowling is an international law firm. They're separate and above. We have access to accountants and lawyers in-house, and we can send questions, and they will always send back an answer. And for anything foreign, like a Canadian, they'll start off by saying, again, we recommend they talk with an international tax accountant, but here's what we know. So we can give that kind of advice and information, but there is a vacuum that we're aiming to try to fill for this group of Canadians that are like-minded and want to explore the world, whether that's working, living, retiring, partially, permanently, whatever. I mean, in my own family, I've seen family members whose daughter went to the UK for university at Oxford, and all of a sudden she's not coming back. And this couple who said they're going to retire in Canada said, well, we're moving back to Romania because now we're going to be at least closer to her, like a little flight away instead of across the ocean. On the flip side, I've had clients that said, we're moving to Spain, and all of a sudden their kid got accepted into Harvard. I said, well, we're not going to Romania or Spain anymore because we're going to stay here until he's finished. So life changes. And it's nice to be in a group where you know you can talk about it without kind of like, you crazy. What are you doing? We're all kind of in the same boat here.
And financially prepared for whatever it might
Hopefully
be.
financially prepared. Yeah.
Yes,
That's
just
that's the
like
key.
last week, I shared a story as well where someone moved, and 3 years later, they said, you know what? It's not for us. We want to come back. But they
Yep.
sold their house 3 years ago. Good luck
Yep.
buying that same house. It was today's prices coming from Europe. So
Yep.
yeah, you better be financially prepared. Don't burn the bridges, as we say. And if you do decide to come back, hopefully your kids will accept you, or you'll have enough monthly income to rent something that you enjoy, or maybe actually also buy.
I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but I think it's like I think COVID was the one of the silver linings is that people realized life is short, right? And I'm not sure if this is the case with everybody. Maybe some people are not affected by that at all. But in the videos I've watched and people I've talked with, a lot of people feel that, let's take advantage of enjoying responsibly, um, and not waiting for regret to happen, at 75 or 85. Boy, I wish I would have done that. And I think it's just a thirst of making sure they're getting the right information. Um, and it's hard to give a cookie cutter answer to everybody. That's the challenge with questions that come in through Facebook. People will ask, can anybody help me with this, with Visa? And I say, well, without knowing what you're trying to do, no. Sort of, but not really. So anyway, that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. If you want to stay on, I can stop recording and we can chat for the next 6 minutes.